What is the number one thing that they need to make sure that they have in place before they start that partnership that you think was beneficial to you and your partnership?
Yep. I would say have the roles and responsibilities defined and number of hours and expectations defined.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
And you've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Meg, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to have you on the show. Before we jump into about your business, can you give us a little bit of information about who you are and how you grew up?
Sure. Meg Garavaglia is my name, and I live in Ackworth, Georgia. We've lived here for about 21 years, Ken, and I'm married. I've been married to the same man for 28 years, I believe. And
we'll
we
edit
have
that for you. So it seems like it's right off the top of your tongue.
I know, right? He's much better with math than I am. He always handles all the math equations. And we have two boys. They are, let's see, well, here we go again. 20, they're going to be 23 and 25, and they live really close by. One is finishing college. The other one is about midway through. And let's see, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I'm the last of 6 kids, and 5 of us are girls. I have one brother. And we're kind of dispersed a little bit throughout the nation. My dad was an entrepreneur, and so I think I got the bug a little bit from him. He taught me and all of us all that I know, I think, in terms of customer service. And he made it very clear that, customers put the shoes on our feet and keep the lights on. And so he never took that for granted, and he made sure that we remembered that and kept that humility about us. So I think that was an ever-present attitude growing up, and my mom really embraced that too. So we never got to be too big for our britches, I think, as a whole. And we all worked for him. That was just a given, except for one weekend when I did get fired. But I was 17, and yeah, it was just a weekend. So
your dad fired you?
He did.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah, I had it coming. But
that's a learning experience, I bet.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Like
my
one
dad,
that you probably still carry with you today. Like, got fired from your dad.
By my dad, yeah. And both my parents had passed away because, of course, by the time I came along, they were older, and so I always had older parents growing up. But yeah, I was covering the store one Saturday morning really early, and I didn't take that quite as seriously as I should have. And so I had fallen asleep at the counter, and it was like 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, like I said, and some older gentleman came in. The bell even rang, and it didn't wake me up, and I was out cold. And so I'd been out late. And so he said, "Young lady," and I came to, and he said, "Do you know where like the flux capacitor is or something?" And I was like, "Is that plumbing or electrical?" And he said, "Never mind, I'll find it myself." So then he came in on Monday morning when my dad was working, and he totally outed me and said, "I don't know who you have working on Saturday morning, but she's terrible." Oh, my dad had whoever was working for him that day cover for him, and I was at home. It was the summertime. And he came down, and my dad did not get horribly angry at the baby much.
Right.
And oh yeah, he was like, he let me have it and was just so mad and was like, "That's it." He actually said, "You're fired." And it was serious. And so then part of me was like, yay, I don't have to work Saturdays. But then the other half was like, holy cow, I
Shit.
made my dad really mad, and I understood the brevity of it. And my mom said, like, don't make any plans for Saturday. You're going to be back up there. So I was. And, sadly, my dad had gotten cancer when he was in his 70s. And he looked at me, he had a great sense of humor. And he said, you were the only kid I had to fire. And he said, but you learned your lesson.
That is a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you carry that with you, sorry for your loss. But I think that's something you probably carry with you when you're hiring and firing people today, even still.
Oh, it's, that hunger. And we talk about Patrick Lencioni in our company a lot, humble, hungry, and smart. And just that willingness to go above and beyond. My dad really instilled that in us. So, Wonderful. So getting back to my life, it is not terribly interesting. I didn't do any time in the big house or anything, unfortunately or fortunately. But anyway, so my husband is a paper engineer. So we've moved around a bit for his job. Getting back to, let's see. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, York, Pennsylvania.
You're in Georgia now.
York.
Or Atlanta.
Yep.
Georgia, yeah. Are you in Atlanta or outside of Atlanta?
Outside. It's the suburbs of Atlanta.
Wonderful.
York, Pennsylvania is York Peppermint Patty, York Barbell. You may be familiar. Yes. And outside of Hershey, which is Milton Hershey, is kind of, an entrepreneur that we respect a lot here. He just created a really great environment for his workers. I think he struck a good balance for having a work environment. He understood that his workers needed to have some balance, Right. I think he erred a little bit on the side of trying to get, as much as he could out of them. But I also think that he cared about them. He did care about his people. But nonetheless, so then I graduated from Kutztown University, which is a real college. I've had attorneys say, is that really, did you make that up? And I'm like, no, I didn't make that up. But it's in Kutztown University, state school.
Right.
And then I met my husband along the way. He's a paper engineer. He's from Detroit, and we moved back to Detroit for a little while. Then we moved to Houston, Kingwood, Texas, and moved back to Pennsylvania for a time. And then here in Ackworth. And have our two boys. I stayed home for a number of years. Decided to re-enter the workforce and became a pharmaceutical sales rep, go figure, and sold wound care products, wound care pharmaceuticals, and loved it, but traveled like crazy, even had a nanny, and that was difficult. And then left that, traveled just too much. I felt like I never saw the kids. My husband travels all the time. And then switched to e-discovery and litigation support sales to attorneys, because there's just many more attorneys than there are doctors and hospitals and the likes. So I didn't have to travel, and I did that for about 10 years. Really loved the consultative sales approach that came with that, and developed some great relationships, but went through a total of 4 acquisitions in my career, and my hours just grew, and the commute, and on and on. Finally, just had enough. And our boys, my oldest son, Drew, had just 2 years left in school. And again, I was leaving my house at 6:30 in the morning and getting home at like 7 p.m. And I was missing football games and, the whole bit. Right. So, decided to try working virtually as a virtual relationship manager, and did that for a company that placed virtual assistants. Loved it. Worked for a great company. I thought they did great work, and kept getting attorneys on my roster because of my background. And the attorneys loved what we did, but they wanted paralegals, client intake specialists, etc. And the company that I work for just didn't want to venture into that field. In fact, I asked them, can we, accommodate?
Right.
And they said, you know what, and I asked them specifically 2 different times. I went to the owners and said, hey, I really think we're leaving money on the table. Can we consider this? And the owner said, I appreciate it. I love the fact that the clients want to grow their business with us, but we don't have a heart tug with the legal industry, and we're growing as fast as we can. In fact, they were sold shortly after I left. Obviously nothing to do with me. But anyway, they said, we just have no interest in that. So eventually I left and focused solely on web and legal. And so that's what we do.
Okay.
We place, virtual paralegals, client intake specialists, and essentially all support roles in a law firm.
Okay. So you do virtual assistants for law firms.
We do virtual legal assistants, virtual paralegals, virtual client intake specialists, virtual docket clerks. Again, just about any support role in a law firm.
That is really interesting. So
thanks.
I think that fills a really nice niche. I have some lawyer friends that I'll definitely recommend your service to and see if they can kick the tires, because I know, especially right now, you're probably as busy as you can be trying to deal with the staffing shortages, and I'm assuming that you have the demand is higher than the supply right now.
We are not having any real trouble with supply. I know the nation has talked about that, but we are certainly getting more applicants than we are hiring, for sure. We did a sweep to try to figure out what percentage. I mean, we're getting hundreds and hundreds of resumes a week, and we boiled it down to, we're taking just about the top 3%. And it's an arduous vetting process. And we've developed that figuring, like, we've read lots and lots of books. We've had experience. I have experienced people working with me and paralegals, and then we're bringing an attorney on board with us, and because they have experience that we don't have. Like, my experience is more from the outside looking in, and then we have a panel of experts, an advisory panel.
Right.
But we feel like our clients could benefit from somebody and more than one as well, people who've sat in their seats for them to speak with. So, yeah. So
it's really cool. Yeah. I love how you did that. Before you exited the company you were working for, because you saw this demand while you were working for another company, and you approached the owners, which is, I highly recommend that's what you should do. If you're working for a company and the company affords you an opportunity, you should bring that to your managers and the owners of that company, right? You shouldn't just go, oh, I have this opportunity, I'm going to quit and go do this, because you don't know what they're doing. I think it's a little shady. If you handle it appropriately, which Meg did, she went to her boss and said, hey, I think we're leaving money on the table. He said no twice. Did you say, hey, if you're going to say no to this, do you mind when I leave, if I do it? Or did you just leave that no on the table for them?
Yeah. So they had stepped back from the business, and they took time away from the business. And so I can't say that I asked him specifically, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing my own business.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely asked him.
You got to clear. No, that's not what we're doing.
Oh, absolutely
Meg,
clear.
leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
Go do your job, and we're growing in this direction.
Yeah,
So,
and we have no interest in this. We just don't have an interest in that.
right.
And
that part's very important for the audience, because if you don't have a clear, documented conversation about what you're doing, your previous employer could come and say, no, that was our idea. You stole it from us, and you'd be stuck in court, and nobody wants that. So I think transparency is wildly, wildly important whenever you're going to transition. And you had any kind of conversation at your previous employer about the type of work that you might be doing.
And there's no crossover too. We're very careful about when you said, do you do virtual assistants? I said, no, we don't do virtual assistants. We do virtual legal assistants, which that may mean nothing to the layperson, but anybody in the industry knows it's a total, and it's not just lip service. Legal assistants do work very similar to paralegals. Virtual assistants do administrative, oftentimes personal administrative tasks, and legal assistants are very much in the legal, they need to know nomenclature that is legal.
Right.
And
are they state by state licensed?
Well, some states need to be. And the differentiator is paralegals, attorneys bill their time, right? So let's say, I think the average is $3.50 an hour throughout the nation. And that can vary. It's a huge spread, right? Depending on the state. But attorneys run out of time very quickly. They can have high level things done by paralegals, and they can bill at a much lower rate, like $150, but many states require that the paralegal be certified to bill that time, and it just depends on the state. So yeah.
Okay. And what's the name of the company?
Woven Legal.
Woven, and we'll put it up, down on the bottom. And if there's a law firm out there that's looking for help, how would they get in contact with you?
Yeah, they can call our number 770-362-5409, or they can go to our website, www.wovenlegal.com. And we named it Woven Legal because we really want to be brought in as part of the fabric of the firm, be woven in. It's fractional, or, we can be brought in part-time or full-time. It just depends on the needs, and it's month to month. So, it's really just whatever serves the client best.
Wonderful. So, I love how you found that niche and really dove into that very specific thing, right? I think people all the time are like, oh, I'm going to do a staffing agency, and we'll staff everything for everybody. And I know that I've worked with some staffing agencies in the past, and it works really best when they're like, oh, no, we staff for janitorial services, or we staff for construction services, or we staff for low voltage installation. Those companies seem to me like they're doing much better financially than the companies that say, hey, I'm going to do it for everybody. Good. Unless you're Upwork or somebody like that, right?
Right.
They can do it for everybody, but that's a completely different kind of game that they're playing, I think. So congratulations on finding that, leaning in on it, and finding that specific niche. That's pretty cool. Now, your boys are older. Are they working for you? Mm-hmm. Are you going to take the same path as your dad?
Well, it's funny. Well, we have a score mentor. I don't know how many of your folks utilize.
We talk about mentoring. Score a lot. Yes.
Oh my gosh, thank heavens, because I'm always amazed that people have not heard of SCORE sometimes. And we got the golden ticket because our guy ran SAP, the software company. And so we oftentimes say we got the golden ticket. And so we've talked about different ways to integrate my kids, but so I've had take your child to work day, lots of days. I've taken Drew particularly because he's older and he is just such a natural at sales, and he's done a number of things with me. Matt is still kind of learning, but Drew wants to be a pharma rep first. And we do kind of feel like he needs to plant his own flag before he comes here. And I know my dad would approve of that. It was important for me to teach them, Ken, and to convey to them that this is not a safety net for them, that they have to earn their way here. And so, and Rick, our SCORE mentor, really felt the same way.
Right.
Patty Cotter is our director of operations, and she brings such polish, and I just value her opinion so much.
Yep.
And as a result, she felt that way too, and knows my son and has met him, on a number of different occasions. And I think we all felt like that was best for him too, for his growth as well. Because, when you work with your parents, do you bring your A game if you don't know what's at stake? I just don't know.
Right.
Did you work for your parents ever?
No, I didn't. My parents were not. I mean, my dad started a company 2 years before he passed away. He finally got off the couch and made that decision. I did work for him for a couple of days, but I've always been a worker. I've been working.
Okay. Yeah.
I had my first hourly job at the age of 11, bussing tables for
That's
70 cents
amazing.
an
Yeah.
hour, right? And some tips. So,
That's awesome. Yeah.
I've always been a worker, which is, not the score for my whole family by far, but, so I did not work. I guess I did work for him for a couple of days, but it wasn't very long at all. And it was known that, hey, I was between jobs and, hey, I'll pick these deliveries up for you. I was just a delivery driver. It wasn't like I had to say so. But I would love it if my daughter would take over one of my companies, but she has zero interest at all on doing it. So again, I'm like, hey, it's here if you want it. Somebody's going to have to run them when we're gone. Or sell them, I guess. I don't know what you're going to do with them.
Isn't it funny? But it didn't. I don't think it hit me until, another thing my dad said when he was sick was, Megger, a lot of people talk about going into business, but not a lot of people had the guts to do it. And I mean, when he said that, I think I was like, it didn't really, but then it started to niggle at me and it bothered my ego. And I remember somebody saying, talking about the man, and I don't want to work for the man. And I'm like, the man's been pretty good to me. I don't think the man's that bad. But then as I started getting a little bit older, I just started thinking, there's something to be said for creating an environment that makes sense, and I think that's really nice to be able to hold the line and have things make sense and not take a long time to make changes and have to go through all the bureaucracy, Yeah,
I hate red tape. I understand the need for it in some case scenarios, but I hate red tape. But let's lean in the other direction. So you come from an entrepreneurial family, you worked for your dad, all those things. You did not take that path for a very long time in your life, right? Married, kids, staying home, worked in the corporate American job, all of those things. And then you say, Dad nagging at me from the grave, right? Of not everybody can do this. And did he, do you feel like he wanted you to have your own company?
I do. My dad said to me, he was always encouraging to all of us. And we never had a lot of money growing up. I mean, with 6 of us, my dad
Right.
had a 10th grade education. And he always respected drive. And he always said, Megger, you have a lot of drive. And so he would always say, just keep pushing and be honest, work hard. And I always did work hard. But, Ken, one of the things that I struggled with was not follow through, because in sales you have to have follow through,
Right.
but trying to get all the plates spinning that would get a business moving forward.
Right.
And like, I could get sales, but I couldn't get all the other I couldn't conceive of being able to keep all that going.
Right.
So I think it was with Patty, and then, we were able to outsource the other things. And with Patty's help, because she's such a process driven person, I think, it's like that one quote some president said about getting the right people in place and being able to, as the person who has the vision. And I hate to say that because it sounds so like,
Henry Ford's a huge proponent of hiring the right people.
Right. And so I can see what it is kind of that where I want to go. And then Patty and I talk it through, and I tell her kind of what kind of cake I want to make and how I think it should taste. And Patty's like, okay, well, this, and we need some of that. And, and I think she and I were brought together on purpose, driven from above, shall we say. And I think as a result, that's why it works.
So your partner, Patty's your ops person, and she gave you the confidence to make this jump. You don't think you would have had it without her, or do you think that it was just the perfect storm in the right moment and that all came together for you?
I had a business partner when I first started out, and I think that without her as the catalyst, she was go, 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 we're going to do this,
Right.
And so I think that it was, kind of a perfect storm. And then she had to step away. She had 2 small kids. Her husband is an attorney, and they bought a manufacturing facility. And so she had a lot of irons in the fire. And so she decided to leave right before the end of last year. So bought out her portion of the business, and kept moving. And then, Patty and I continued moving forward. So I would have I think at this point, I am driven and motivated to keep moving forward. And I think Patty is the same. I think Patty would keep this moving. I think we both share the vision of where it is going.
Right. I just want to try to analyze a couple of things that you said there and put them into a little bit different perspective.
I love that.
And I don't know. So you had all the ingredients, right? Drive and motivation and all those things.
Yes.
And I think so many people don't move forward, and fear is one of the reasons. But the fear isn't. It's not like abundantly in front of you. You're like, I don't have a problem with selling. I don't have a problem with doing these things.
Right.
But the problem is, you said, getting the plate spinning or like the recipe. Once you break the eggs, you have to keep moving forward, right? And it's that. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to break the egg now. I don't know how to make this cake, and that's okay. But I know that I have to break the eggs to move on. And once I break those eggs, I'm moving forward. I can't not stop. And for different people, it's different stuff. For me, it's like I can get the website up. I can even do proof of concept. I can do minimum viable product. But until I actually file the LLC or file for a trademark, I haven't broken the eggs yet. I'm just might have wasted some of my time and that kind of stuff. So, it's really, what is your, breaking your eggs? What is that to you? And once you get over that, you're done. Like, everything else is just going to start rolling into place. It happens that way. I don't know who said the quote, but it was basically, you will have it was something about creativity, right? I don't have any creativity. And the quote was, well, once you commit, the creativity will come, right?
Yes.
You don't have creativity yet because you haven't committed to doing it yet. And
I love that.
you just got to break the damn eggs.
Yes.
and start moving.
It's exactly it. And, I heard a painter was asked in an interview, do you wait until inspiration hits? And they said, actually, inspiration waits for me. Like I just show up. I have to just show up. And I find that to be true for me. If I suit up, show up, and am willing to do the next right thing, it will, and I'm putting in the time, it will be okay. Especially if I have the right, or people that have the right motives in place too, right? And we screw up a lot. But I can honestly say that we have our clients' best interests in mind all the time. And we kind of serve two clients because we have contractors who also can be employees, because anybody who's over, let's say 30 hours, it's 80% of their professional time, right? That's the law these days.
Okay.
Because of the employment laws, So if we command 80% or more of their professional time, then we bring them in as employees and they get benefits and the whole bit. So we call them VLPs, virtual legal professionals. So, so those are like one of our clients, and then the attorneys and law firms. And so anyway, just serving both sides is, I would say, really important. Yeah.
And different skill sets in both sides.
Yeah. That's exactly
in my mind.
Right.
And, I know this business, not in a deep level. I think I've built out 2 staffing agencies in my career. And when I say built out, like I did the website, the marketing plan, and stuff like that. I did not start the companies. I would just work with those companies on those. It's 2 completely different marketing strategies, right?
Yes.
And for you, it's not just 2. It's you're selling to your clients who are buying your service, but then you're also selling to all of your people that are looking for jobs.
That's right.
And each one of those different categories, I would do a separate sales or marketing campaign for, like paralegal versus legal assistant would be 2 different campaigns completely. So, which is something I think people miss on their depth of their marketing campaigns. That's
a great tip. And we're learning all the time because we're still so young. We've only been at this for really 2 years. And I think the cool thing is word of mouth with the VLPs grows much more quickly than I ever anticipated. And we have people who come to interviews, and I'll sit in on those at times. And some of them will say, oh, it sounds like a family. And I'm like, we're not a family. We're not a family. I appreciate that, but I don't know about you, but I have a family, and I care immensely about the people on our team and our VLPs. However, that's why we do this. We don't want, we all left that corporate vice to try to have some balance and perspective, and, and that's what I want for them too. Yeah. I want them. So I'm always like, no, we want you to turn your computer off and have your
weekend and enjoy your family.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, we are not your family, and you are not my family. So yeah. So
Wonderful.
and just authentic. Yeah, we just want everybody to feel like they can be authentic. Yeah.
All right, so I want to dive in a little bit on your partnership, and not necessarily the details of your partnership, just partnerships in general. We talk about partnerships on the show a lot with solo entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that have partnerships, and I've done it both ways. With partners, I've failed more than succeeded, but I have also gotten my current company, I've got 30 partners, right? So I'm just the managing partner, but there's 29 others of me that help us do all of this stuff.
Yep.
And we weren't against it a lot, right? On some of the things that you need to make sure they're in place, making sure that your contracts are clear, making sure that exit strategy is clear, making sure that the labor required for both parties, if it's sweat equity, is very defined on the scaling structure and all of those things. Outside of all the legal things that you can get into, if somebody was, there's two friends right now that are sitting somewhere at a bar or a coffee shop or something, they're talking about an idea and they're talking about partnering and starting into this business. What is the number one thing that they need to make sure that they have in place before they start that partnership that you think was beneficial to you and your partnership?
Yep. I would say have the roles and responsibilities defined and number of hours and expectations defined.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
And as much as you possibly can, get those written out.
I
would almost say, and I don't know how to vet this, but make sure you can have a fight and still be friends at the end too.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we weren't friends, and that I think was helpful. We knew we were colleagues, and because she was an attorney, so we had done business before.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that made it easier to have, candid conversations. Right. But
because conflict happens. Conflict is going to happen. So you have to make sure if you're a partner with somebody, especially if you're like 50-50, and I'm 50-50 in a business with two companies with my wife, right? So I'm very aware of documenting and making sure everybody's aware of what they're supposed to be doing. But it's really, really important to have that documented and move forward. I think that's a really good piece of it. But making sure that you can deal with conflict together is another one that I think is so huge. And I don't have a good way to tell if you're gonna if when times get tough, is this person gonna walk through that with you or not? And only time will tell. I think
if I can venture to say, if as a partner, if you're considering a partnership and you find yourself telling fibs, about how you're spending your time, and I would say people fib because I see this and I saw this when I was a relationship manager where people would undervalue their time, right?
Yep.
Undervalue their time and they would overwork for fear that they weren't doing enough. And they would think it was fine, but it caused resentments. If you could play the tape forward, you would see, because I did it for a number of years, I could see like, oh, this is not going to end well. Because you would see it again and again. So if that happens, I could say that's going to be that's a red flag that you're not comfortable with conflict. So if you find yourself fibbing, even though you wouldn't say that's a fib, like it's a fib that you're doing for yourself, on yourself. If there's any element of not being 100% candid, honest, authentic, upfront, you have issues there, and you should maybe consider not doing that. And I know I've done things like, just, for heaven's sakes, it'll be fine. Roommates, right? Like, I'm sure.
I do it all the time. I still do it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I've got an example that I do regularly, and it discredits my teammates, and it's not healthy for myself. Is there would be this really big project that's not getting done, and I get into this zone sometimes, and I can get a lot of work done in very short periods of time, or seemingly short periods of time. So I might take 8 or 10 hours one night and just cram on a website and get a whole bunch of work done. And I'll come the next day. I'm like, okay, boys, this is where we're at. And we need to go from here. They're like, oh my God, how'd you do this? This is amazing. I'm like, oh, it's nothing. I did it in a couple of hours. And I
Right.
say a couple of hours, and it was really 10 or 15 hours
Right.
over the weekend that I really crammed on it. So I'm discrediting myself, and I know that it's very easy to do, right? Because
And
it's time that, to
yeah.
me, it's time that I would have been, playing Fortnite or
Right.
watching TV with the wife or something anyway. So it's like, well, I can get this work done now. But it does discredit the team, and they scratch their head like, well, how did he do this in a couple hours? It took us, we worked on it for a
Right.
long time as a team and didn't get it done. So it is
That's
not
very
a good habit to have.
entrepreneurial. Do you find that's really consistent with entrepreneurs though? Like that just whammo, just kind of get it all done at one time?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
because like I'll say all the time, I'm better than most people on the planet at getting 98% of the job done. But I'm really bad at that last 2%. And that last 2% matters
Mm-hmm.
more than the 98. It really, really does. It's what's going
Oh,
to
I
sell the
get
product.
that.
That
Mm-hmm.
last dollar you spend to make your product that much better than the next guy's
Mm-hmm.
is the one that's going to
Yep.
help it sell more than anything else. So, getting
Yep.
98% there and then quitting the job is not a good
That's so hard though. I
tactic.
totally get that. Yeah.
I just hire detail people now. I know that that's the gap. So I'm like, okay, you're really detail oriented.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably not going to be friends. We're probably not going to talk a whole lot.
Yes.
But I'm going to love you, and I'm going
Yes.
to pay you to sit over there and do that detail work and nitpick the heck out of it, because it's not my kind of work.
Yes.
So,
I mean, I honestly think that the people, like, I wonder sometimes, I think Patty does love me, but I think maybe she has a voodoo doll of me on her desk. And every time I forget something, she goes, "Ugh," and like stuffs a pin in it.
right.
So
It's a challenge working
hopefully
together.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's gotta be. Yeah.
But you need that
Gotta be.
balance. I think that
Yeah.
balance is important, and that balance is where I think you find greatness.
Yeah.
I'm a partner with my wife. Go
Oh, that's
picnic
so
sometimes,
great.
right? Not in this company,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
two of our other
Right.
companies were partners,
That's
and
awesome.
one of them we're both active in. Like, we both work
Yeah.
there, and it gets challenging. And I tell her, I'm like, hey, every time that we've had a conflict, a better product came out at the end. I think.
I see. I
For
do
most of the
think
time.
so. Well, if you have
So
kids, let's hope so.
we have
Your
two kids too. Yeah, two
Yeah.
children, and it is
Yeah.
it's a wild ride.
Right.
But we enjoy
It
the heck
is.
out of it,
Yeah.
so we're having a good
So
time.
that's
And
the way it is. Yeah.
yes,
That's family, right? Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
Meg, I
That's
appreciate
great.
your time today. I had a good time
Right.
talking with you and learning about your business. Again, if
Thank
a
you.
law firm was wanting to work for you, or if somebody's like, hey, I'm working at a law firm and I want to go virtual, again, how do they reach out to you?
Yes, sir. Thank you. It is www.wovenlegal.com, or Meg Garavaglia is my name, and it's Meg at wovenlegal.com, or you can call 770-362-5409.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Ken.
And if
Thank
there's
you.
anybody else out there in the world that was working in corporate America,
Mhm.
they were stay-at-home mom for homemaker for some time,
Yes.
then corporate America, and they're thinking about, going off and creating their own company.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give that woman today?
My advice would be to, am I allowed to say this? Say a big prayer that,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, first of all, the mistakes, I think, get you closer to where you're supposed to be, because, it's okay if it's not, I think you have to get your feet wet before, and it's going to be awkward. Actually, I think that's my advice. When you go to the gym for the first time in a long time, you're sore after, it feels awkward. It's okay if it's awkward. It doesn't have to be like a nice glove on your hand. It's going to take a minute to feel like it should, and you'll find the right fit eventually. So, yeah.
And you said prayer, and I couldn't agree with you more. But if you're not a religious person, self-talk is another. Just talking to yourself about what you want and talking about your dreams. And I have these core values that I read every single day, and the last two of them
Awesome.
are imagine and believe. And you have to imagine what you want to get out of this journey that you're on. And if you can imagine it, the next step is you have to believe you can get there and just start working towards it, right? It's just that simple. Just keep going every single day. But if you can't do those two things, you can't imagine where you want to be, then you're going to just kind of gerrymander through this world and exist.
Watch Ted Lasso. How about that?
Ted Lasso? I'm not familiar with Ted Lasso.
What? This is why I'm in your life today, Ken.
Okay, wonderful.
Ted Lasso is just an incredibly uplifting show on Apple TV. And they always point to the sign that says believe, and it's a soccer team. And it is so much fun, but it is very uplifting. So
awesome. Well, again, Meg, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. I hope to talk again soon.
All
right.
Bye, Ken. Thanks.
That's it for today's show, folks. If you'd like to join my text line community, the number is 314-370-2871. All you have to do to join that text line is send me any question about business or technology. I'll do all the research, and I'll give you an absolutely free, totally unbiased answer. Get to work.